women's obligation when it comes to davening. What is a woman's chiyuv when it comes to tefillah? Again, it's connected to many themes that we've seen in the past, but here we're going to see a fascinating machloket between Ashkenazim and the Sephardim, how it's mentioned in contemporary halacha. But let's begin and ground ourselves with the original source. The original makor is found in a Gemara. Actually, it's a Mishnah on page 4, on source number 14. It says the following: Nashim vavadim v'ktanim peturim mikriyat shema min tefillah. That again, these are all things that mistam. Why are they exempt? Because they are mitzvah aseh shon grama. Very good. V'chayavim b'tefillah mezuzah b'berkat hamazon. But they are all obligated in tefillah, davening. Again, we talk about davening. What's the final? It's the midah, right? Mezuzah and berkat hamazon. Now. The question is obvious. Wait a second. I understand why they're obligated in mezuzah and berkat hamazon, because they are not. They are not what? Mezuzah and berkat hamazon. They're not time bound. Not connected to time. You eat. You got a bench. You have a house. You put a mezuzah, right? So it's not. Those are not time bound. But what about tefillah? Isn't tefillah time bound?
Berkat hamazon not, because it's only
careful. It's zaman grama. It's the time. It's you eating is gorim. Not time is not gorim. You eating is gorim.
Like it's not at 2:30 every day.
Right. I mean, unless you're like, right. 2:30 on a Tuesday doesn't obligate you to bench. It's eating.
You could eat any time.
Yeah. It's not the time that obligates you. It's eating that obligates you. Okay. So the question is obvious. Madua chayvut b'tefillah. Isn't it a mitzvat aseh she'ezman grama? Here we go. Take a look at 15. Says the Gemara. Chayav mitfila. What is the rationale that they're obligated in tefillah? The rachmanininu. Because they're obligated in tefillah it's because it's about rachamim. It's about rachamim. It's about supplications. It's about to be merciful. Ma'udatema hu v'katuv ba erev avoker v'tzarayim ki mitzvat aseh shel gramadami. No, kamashman that it's not. You would have thought that they're obligated. Sorry, you would have thought that they're exempt because mitzvat aseh shel grama, because it says erev avoker v'tzarayim, and that's perhaps a chiv of tefillah. And we see from here, no, it is not time bound. Rashi says it is not time bound. Therefore, since it is not time bound, the woman is obligated. Now, the fact the chiv tefillah is about rachamim, is that a biblical obligation or a rabbinic obligation? What do you propose? What do you think? Is Rashi saying this is a chiv min Torah or a chiv min Rabbanan? The fact that tefillah is the rachamim ninu. What does that sound to you? Doraisa or the Rabbanan?
Doraisa.
Anyone else? Take a vote. Doraisa?
Yeah.
Take a look at wrong. Rashi seems to imply that it's in the Rabbanan. Take a look. Rashi, you should just read the next line. Maz b'shechivat tefillah ino midoraisa midorabbanan v'kivan shetochanahu bagashat rachamim chazot tignu shikam nashi titpalana b'tefillah shmona esrei. Since the obligation for davening the Amida, for davening Shmona Esrei, is only midorabbanan, it's because it's rachamim. So once Chazal come along and make that obligation for women, it's the same chiyuv as for a man. Rachamim for a man, rachamim for a woman. What's the difference? There is no difference. Therefore, we see there's Rishonim who hold that women are obligated in davening just like men. Omnam, however, in davening daily. Omnam, Harif and the Rambam, they argued. Says the Rif, source 16, Kriyat Shema v'tfilin tahavile mitzvah aseh shozman grama v'chol mitzvat aseh shozman grama nashim b'tirot. But tefillah mezuzah because. By the way, the problem with arguing that tefillah is midurabanan is I don't like the context so much, because the Mishnah lists tefillah with the chiyuv of mezuzah and berkat hamazon, which are clearly minadora. Now, I'm not saying that's a proof. I'm not saying that's a proof that tefillah is midoraisa, but contextually, it's kind of being wrapped in together with doraisas, right? Okay. Tahavile mitzvah ashes al grama. So says the Rif, davening is not like benching and mezuzah are not time bound. According to the Rif, which by the way is the Rambam, which as we'll see is the Shulchan Aruch, it is not time bound. And therefore, since it is not time bound, women are obligated. So the question is obvious. Yes, it is time bound. Meaning, you could scream as much as you want saying it's not time bound, right? I can scream it, but isn't it time bound? Why is tefillah time bound? Because you have to do it in the morning. There's a zman, there's a parameter, there's a time limit, there's a morning, afternoon, there's evening. So you can tell you want that tefillah is not time bound, but isn't it time bound? Says the Rambam, source 17. So again, we see in the Mishnah that there's differences. Women are exempt from certain mitzvot. It appears, what's the exemption of those mitzvot? They're not time bound. According to the Rif and according to the Rambam, it's min Torah. We have to explain then why are women obligated in tefillah if it's time bound. It appears it's time bound. Sorry, it appears that meaning it's not time bound. But why isn't it time bound? It appears it is time bound. When it comes to Rashi and the Ramban who hold it midrabanan, so again, Chazal said there's an obligation. This is an obligation, right? Once Chazal create a chiyuv, so they create the chiyuv. Women and men are the same. Take a look, please, at the Rambam, source 17. Mitzvat aseh litpalel b'chol yom shneimar v'avaretem es Hashem Elokeichem u'mipi hashmua. We learn from Torah Shabbal Peh. What does this mean? V'avaretem es Hashem Elokeichem. This is avodah shibalev v'neimar lovdo b'chol vavchem. Aruch Chachamim. All the Rambam here is doing is quoting a Gemara that we've seen before. Ezuhi avodah shebalev zohi tefillah. What is this avodah for the Rambam? It is a biblical obligation to daven every single day. Ve'ein minyan tefillah min Torah, but the number of davenings, that's not min Torah. V'lo mishnei tefillah zot min Torah, and even the nusach, even the syntax isn't min Torah. Ve'ein tefillah zon kavua, and from the Torah there's no set time. So therefore, since there's no set time according to the Torah, since what you say is not min Torah, you just need to daven. As we'll see in a minute, you have to have a bakasha, you have to have rachamim, you have to have hodah, shevach, hodah, you have to have those components. How you find those components is almost irrelevant. You just have to hit those three things on the head and you fulfill your biblical obligation. Midorabanan, we created the nusach tefillah. But midoraisa, you need to have certain components, you fulfill your obligation. And that is the obligation that women have just like men. There's no difference. Tell me something, gentlemen. The pasuk of Varatam L'Shem Elokeichem. That's not time bound. Right? It's not time bound. Therefore, go to Beis in 17. Lefichach. Nashim, Vavadim, Chayavim Betfila. Lefi Shi Mitzvahs Aseh Shalosh. It's not time bound. You have to daven once a day. Nothing to do with morning after. Once a day you need to daven. It's not time bound, says the Rambam. Elachiyuv Mitzvah Zokachi. This is the chiyuv. A person has to supplicate and petition God daily. And with praise. You have to have bakasha. You have to have a need. So you need to have bakasha. You need to have shevach and hodah. If you have these three components, you fulfill your doraisa. So, by the way, how do you do this? It could be either those who say by Semodani you fulfill your doraisa. B'chol Shachar you might fulfill your doraisa, right? Obviously, Shmoneh Esrei you fulfill your doraisa. That's a given, right? But there are many ways to fulfill your biblical obligation. Hainu, let's continue. Lechovah min Torah litpalel ezman kavua, no nusach kavua. Therefore, women are obligated because it's not time bound. Chazal established 3 times a day. Right? And when during those days, the nusach tefillah, but that's not the Raisa. Okay. What's the machloket between the Rishonim? Meaning you have the Rashi and the Ramban in one school, the Rif and the Rambam on the other. What's the machlokas? Is there a mitzvah to daven min Torah every single day or not? What's the nafkamina? Are women obligated or not? If you hold it to mean, if it's midorabanan, the obligation, women have to say Shmoneh Esrei. If it's only midoraisa, the women don't have to say Shmoneh Esrei necessarily. They can say any minimum type of tefillah as long as it consists of these 3 components. Even if it's truncated and short, nonetheless, they fulfill their obligation. That's all they need to do. Okay. By the way, just as an aside, it's worthwhile mentioning, there's a famous, Rabbi Soloveitchik was, this is mostly printed in 20 different places in the words of the Rav. The famous machloka is between the Rambam and the Ramban. The Rambam writes his mitzvah to daven every single day. The Ramban says there is a mitzvah min Torah to daven. Do you know when? Only during a?
Like Sarah?
Every good. An 8 Sarah. Wonderful. So says the Rav Soloveitchik, he says, no, you don't understand. There's no machlokas. What's the machlokas between the Ramban and the Rambam? The Ramban holds there's only a mitzvah d'oraisa to daven Beit-Sarah. The Rambam holds every day. Says Rav Soloveitchik, no. What's the machlokas over? For the Rambam, every day is an Eis Tzara. The Rav wanted to minimize machlokas. And what's the machlokas over? They both agree it's over an Eis Tzara. The Rambam says that every day of human existence, right, is an existence of an Eis Tzara. Who knows what's going to be today? Whereas the Ramban concretizes and says, no, what's an Eis Tzara? War, famine, right? Siege. That's the machlokas between them, this existential machlokas. That's the famous Rav Soloveitchik. Anyways, but it's very, very much connected to what we're talking about. What is halacha l'maaseh? What do we pass? Like said the Shulchan Aruch in source 18. So again, we've seen this before. When you have Rashi and the Ramban on one side, the Rif and the Rambam on the other, which way will the Shulchan Aruch go? Rif Rambam. Take a look at 18. Nashim vavadim sha'af alpi, that they are exempt from Kriyat Shema, they are chayavim betfila mipnei she mitzvah aseisha lo hazman grama. There's a biblical obligation for women to daven every day. Pashut varav, he holds it from the Rambam. Oh no, careful. When we say doraisa chiyuv, it for sure is shon esrei, but it doesn't have to be shon esrei. It can also be.
What, Kriyat Shema?
No, Kriyat Shema you're not filled. Need Hodah, Bakasha, and Shavach, Bakasha, Hodah. You need the three components. You need the three components. Right. So again, if I can do... No, the Mitzvah Asher Grandma, the first part of the Kriyat Shema. I think I said this before, that's why Sephardi women, if they daven, if you go to a real Sephardi school, they don't say Barachot of Kriyat Shema. They have to say Barachot Hashem Yotzer Marot. Because remember, we learned this before, Sephardim don't say a bracha on a mitzvah asher on grandma. They don't make a bracha on lulav or shofar.
Yeah, but just because...
Sephardi women, that's the Shulchan Aruch.
Just because they're not chayiv doesn't mean it's aser.
So no, because they don't make a bracha. But Sephardi women don't make a bracha on a mitzvah asher.
Right, but I'm saying even for that, like, just because...
It's somewhere, I'm sure it's somewhere in a book.
They
said you can't, they said no, you can't do it. You know, right? That's a Rabbeinu Tam. Okay, 19. Says the Magen Avraham, who immediately says, listen, the language of the Shulchan Aruch, says the Magen Avraham, is from the Rambam. That's clear. That's the biblical obligation to daven. As it says, and again, it quotes the Rambam, but it's sufficient from a biblical obligation to daven once. In any language, in any syntax that you desire. You don't need to say Shonasrei that we have. Nahagu Rov Nashim. Says the Magen Avraham, who's already living a few hundred years ago, majority of women don't daven regularly. Mishum de omri miyad b'boker samach l'netila is a bakasha. They wake up and they watch Negavaser and they say Splav bakasha. Saying to Modani, Midoraita, and that's sufficient. If Sharsh Gam Chachamim lo chivu yoter, and it could even be Magen Avraham that even Chazal did not obligate them further. Haramban, so there, the Tefillah de Rabbanan. The Ramban says no, Tefillah is rabbinic, and that is the majority of the poskim. Hainu, and we said this already. From the Mishnah Berurah, and says in number 20, women need to daven twice a day. Why? Anachnu Ashkenazim. We hold like the Ramban and Rashi. Chiyuv of Tefillah is midrabanan. Chachamim made a takana, they have to daven 3 times a day. Marv is reshut, we're not going to stick that onto women. But the Mishnah Berurah is going to say women need to daven twice a day. Most Orthodox Jewish schools, or for sure they have all females in them, daven twice a day. Right? They daven Shachri, even women daven Mincha. Right, all the schools that I ever taught at, that was a schools for women, always provided time for Shachar was a given, even Mincha. I remember when Beis Yaakov had like a big chiddush a few years ago, and it's been a long time already, where first period wasn't minyan, or I shouldn't say minyan, first period wasn't davening, first period was class, second period was minyan. Maybe encourage people to come more at a time, not quite sure. But anyways, but nonetheless, in the afternoon too, they set aside time for Mincha, there's no question. That's again, here's the Mishnah Berurah.
If we would have just come later.
Okay, whoa. Number 20. Says go down to the Magen Avraham, see the Mishnah Berurah there in the third line. Katav Magen Avraham, al pisvar zona, gurov nashim shemid palot, Yud Chet Bitmidu Shashachar. We read already. Go down to fourth lines. I apologize, guys. Aval Dat Haramban, which we've seen already. Shikar Mitzvat Tefillah Midivrei Sofrim. Midivrei Sofrim means it's synonymous with Midrabanan. Shehem Anshe Knesset Gedola Shtiknu 18 brachot. Of Seder Hitpalel. O Tan Shachri de Mincha Chovav Arvit B'Shud. V'af Alpi Shehu Mitzvat Asem Divrei Sofrim. Shezon Grama Nashim B'Tur Mikom Mitzvat Asem Shezon Grama Afim Divrei Sofrim like Kiddush Levana. Av Alpi Chen Chayavu Otan B'Tfilat Shacharit U'Mincha Kamo Anashim. Here's the Mishnah Berurah who says women are obligated to daven twice a day Shacharit U'Mincha. Just like men. Ho'el v'tfilah hi bakashat rachamim. Remember bakashat rachamim? What did Rashi say? Rachamani in here, right? That's right. V'chen ikar. This is the ikar. Ki chein dat rova poskim. This is the rova poskim. This is the Sefer Shagas Aryeh. Al ken yeshli zay Aryeh should the nashim should follow the women should daven not just modani, not just be yotze sheva chodam bakasha, but the real McCoy, the whole enchilada. The Amida. V'nachon gam gen shekiblo lehem all mechut shemayim. Wait a second. Not just davening, but they should accept all mechut shemayim, the yoke of heaven. Dahainu shamru kol pachot shema Yisrael. As we said in earlier simon, v'yomru gam ken berchat emet v'yatziv k'dei lismu l'tfilah. By the way, you can't just jump in Sefer Esrei. You have to be somach gula tfilah. You have to become a kabbalah all mechut shemayim. We see women's davening is getting much longer now, right? The cause Lian Shachim Mincha Aval Arvit it was Rashud. Even though of Bishachshav Kfar Kiblum Alem Kol Yisrael, even though us men have accepted it as obligatory, Kol Makom and Nashim Lo Kiblu. That's already, you know what I mean. By the way, can they daven Marav? Of course they can. We don't have the same obligation. Shachim Mincha. The Ruban Emi Palat Arvit. He said Ruban, not all. Ruban. The majority of women don't daven Marav. V'tfilat Musafin. What about Musaf? Ubetzlach Katav their patar. But Sefer Magen Gibrim, Pasak to Chavat. And Machlok if they're Chayav in Musaf or not. I'll tell you one thing. They're for sure obligated in Shachrit, according to this opinion. Yet they're usually short for Musaf, wife included, right? So it's just usually they play catch up. Most women, I think, they come to shul usually catch up first, right? Usually say Shachrit and they kind of
Or just skip everything.
Sure, no, for sure.
Other
they're on time, right? And now you're going to see. By the way, we're going to get into practical because you don't really see this too much. Definitely my wife now, my kids are a bit older, but I'm very good at davening Shachrit and Mincha every day. But when the kids are younger, it's much more difficult. Much more difficult. Every single day. And others, machlokas by Musaf, and when there's Musaf like on Shabbos, Yom Tov, and Rosh Chodesh, Chol Moed. Okay. But the question is that ironclad. So we're going to see two different shuvot. One shuvah by the Divrei Yatziv, who is Rav Yekutiel Yehuda Haberstam, who's the Admor me Klosenberg, the Klosenberger Rebbe, who is pretty famous, right? You know, he's the one. Remember, he came back, he rebuilt the Netanya Hospital, right? That's his brother or something. I don't know, they're all related. I'm not quite sure which one is which. And then you're going to see the Piskei Tshuva, and they're going to kind of defend the.
Wasn't he in Toronto a few years ago? Or son? I
think it was his son. And they're going to explain, well, how come we don't necessarily see women really davening Shachos and Mincha every day? Take a look. It says 21. V'ulai. Let's just go to the concluding lines. Much easier. Ha'hezber Rishon, page 249. Who shenashim torah mitzvah? Shehu sheken asak mitzvah. Maybe they are asak mina mitzvah, pater mina mitzvah. So if you're a mother of young children and you're literally dealing with tipo yeladim, you're dealing with your kids. So if you're engaged in a mitzvah, you may be exempt from a mitzvah. For osek mitzvah is pater. Amnam udochas varazah. He says he mentions this, but he dismisses it. He says, I don't like this far.
What about a man can also be, people be
okay, but I guess it's generally speaking, it's the no. If you say that, if you say that, then men are pater for tefillin and show like they pater for everything. That's what I'm saying.
But according to that argument,
right? So he doesn't like it.
That's probably why he's going to dismiss it.
Yeah, he doesn't like it. Hasbira sheni, mistamek al gemara shekavat adam eno miyushav bedato lekevan lefila. Your pater. If a person is not able, we saw this already. This is why it's connected to our kavana topic a little bit that we've seen the past couple of weeks. If a person is not able to daven with proper intent and with proper focus, they're exempt from davening. We saw this. Al pizeh, This is divrei yatziv she pamim rabot nashim trudot. Maybe women are just not bothered, distracted, is a better word to use. And they can't daven properly, that's why they're exempt. Based on this, if women are not dealing with their kids, so therefore one could argue, if mamash gave the kids to go to school and packing them up and nursing and changing a diaper, and they're doing all those things and they just can't get around to daven properly, they can't find 10 minutes of peace and quiet, then they'd be exempt. Be honest with yourself. You have to say, okay, what else am I doing? I think they could, maybe not in the first couple weeks after they give birth, but afterwards, I think they can maybe find 10 minutes, but they're not tarud, maybe not quite sure. But that's what he definitely encourages to do. And finally, in the Piskei Tshuva, he says, listen, Haminhag lamaisa pihurat tamshak dol Yisrael mikodemet deisha be'et she'ein atuda b'yadal yitfnot litpalal kaseret tefillah b'mitinu b'yishavdat. She's true to b'bayit. She just has too much going on at home to focus on davening. Okay. And he goes on to say, however, the moment they're not, meaning single women, which is why all the schools provide davening. I don't think, single women are bothered by those things when they come to the schools. And perhaps once their kids get a little bit older, not only should they daven, he actually mentions Piskei Tshuva, they should daven everything. He even says Korbana. Can you believe it? He even says Korbana. He even says Tachanan, right? Women have to daven everything. Now, if they can't, because they have to rush, okay. So they should skip Tachanan first, maybe Ashrim Valitzion, right? But there's no question, for sure, the bare minimum they still have to do. And that is, Netilas Yadayim, Berachot HaShachar, Berachas HaTorah, those things, not necessarily in that order, Berachas HaTorah should come first, but at least they should definitely try to do those things. If they can't get to Shema, and recite at least the first pasuk of Shema in Baruch Shem, if they can't get to Emer V'Yatziv and the entire Amidah, fine. But the bare minimum they definitely have to do, and they should definitely be encouraged to at least strive to daven twice a day, especially when they're single, or when their kids are a little bit older, they should definitely daven twice a day. There's no question they're v'chiyuv. And if you're Sfaradi, okay. So if you're Sfaradi, then perhaps you can rely on the Rambam in the Rif, who says the obligation is to daven once a day, but your Yod say all that just with the regular Sheva Chodam Bakasha, which you could fulfill through, let's say, Berachos HaShachar, Berachos HaTorah, right? That you'd find yourself exempt, but no question, everyone agrees you should definitely try and daven twice a day, and perhaps even, there's room to save in Musaf and room to save in Marev, but at least try and strive for Shacharis and Mincha. We will stop there for today.